Okay, clase. So in this video, we're going to talk about expressing ownership using possessive adjectives. And if you need to refer back to the book, that's going to be las páginas 87 hasta la página 89. So clase, the possessive adjectives in English translate to my, your, his, her, its, their, our. And you'll notice here, we do have a couple of examples. Mi clase es bastante grande, right? So we've got me here. Tu profesor es excelente. So we've got two. So what you might have noticed is that these possessive adjectives come directly before the noun that they're modifying. And so in the case, tu profesor and mi clase, right? So we actually have something different in Spanish. So in Spanish, we don't just have one word that means my, we have two. We have mi and mis, okay? You're familiar, tú y tus. Then we have su y sus. Nuestro, nuestros, nuestra, nuestras. Don't worry about these forms. They correspond to vosotros, which we are not using. And then again, we have su and sus, right? So what happens with these is you'll notice that this section, the me, tu, su, and the plural forms agree only in number. Now, it's important to remember that the possessive adjectives agree with the thing or things possessed, not with the possessor. So it doesn't matter who I am, right? It doesn't matter that it's my book, it's the actual book. So we're going to look at that word that follows the thing that we own, and we're going to look at that and then decide whether we need to use the singular or plural forms with these. Okay, this section over here, they're a little different because we have to not only think about number, but also gender. Okay, so if I was saying our books, nuestros libros, our house, nuestra casa. Okay, so with su and sus, they have quite a few different meanings, right? We had your, formal, your, plural, his, her, its, and even their. Okay, so what we might choose to do if context does not tell us who something belongs to, we might choose to use de and one of the subject pronouns, or you could also use de and that person or those people's names. Okay, so let's look at some examples here because this is an example where we could see some confusion. If a student says to the teacher, Profesor, Steven no encuentra el libro de español y Alice no tiene el libro de álgebra, right? So Steven can't find his Spanish book and Alice doesn't have her algebra book. So the teacher could answer, su libro está en la mochila y su libro está en mi escritorio, right? So in this case, we don't know if the su is, this first su is referring to Stephen or Alice, or if even the second su, we don't know if it's Stephen or Alice. We can make an assumption that maybe the professor is saying those in order, but we really don't know. So it would probably be better to say el libro de él or el libro de Stephen está en su mochila. Y el libro de ella or el libro de Alice está en mi escritorio. So remember, you're going to end up using these quite a bit for clarification when it comes to the su or sus if it's not clear. We're in a situation like this where it's definitely not clear. Okay, so we can also use de to talk about who something belongs to. And typically, these are the constructions in English that have an apostrophe S. Okay, so here we have Raul's book is interesting. So our format is el libro de Raúl es interesante. So we don't have this apostrophe S in Spanish. We have a different kind of construction. So what we do is we use the definite article el, la, los, or las along with the thing that's being that's possessed. And no, I'm not talking about exorcist possessed, but the thing that belongs to whoever. Okay, so el libro, in this case, we're going to use de then, and then we're going to use the person's name, or we could use the subject pronoun. So we could just as easily say el libro de él es interesante. So it just depends on how you want to word that. But this is the standard definite article, noun, de, and then the person. And of course, we never use an apostrophe in Spanish to express possession. So don't do it. Okay, so something interesting happens with de when it's followed by el. So this may seem like a perfectly normal sentence to you, but it's a little strange in Spanish, and we've got to do something special. So in Spanish, we cannot have a de and an el. Of course, this is the el meaning the, side by side, separate. This is the closest thing that we have to a contraction in Spanish. So what's going to happen is we are going to combine those. Okay, this is an enlace. Okay, so these two merge. And there's a reason that this happens. It's because if you say this, es la pluma de el profesor Gómez. So there's a very distinct space in there when you say it. And if you go ahead and practice it, say it out loud, because you can kind of feel it feels kind of strange. Your voice completely stops. Okay. Whereas es la pluma del profesor Gómez, it has a much better flow. Okay, but this doesn't happen with any of the other definite articles. So if we were talking about that the pen belongs to Profesora Pérez, we would say es la pluma de la Profesora Pérez. But I might say, ask the question, la pluma es de ella? No, es la pluma de él. So notice here, this él refers to him, right? So this is the he pronoun. It's got an accent mark. Those do not combine. Only up here when you have the el, that means the. Okay, so let's practice a little bit. And you may need to pause in between these to make sure that you get sufficient time to figure out what these should be. So if I said, I have my book, our answer would be, tengo mi libro, right? So mi is matching with libro, which is singular. You have your notebook, and this is the familiar form. So the answer would be, tienes tu cuaderno. He has his hat. Él tiene su sombrero. We have our bicycles. Tenemos nuestras bicicletas. So remember nuestras here. Bicicletas is feminine and it's plural. So it had to agree with both of those. Okay. You have your backpacks. Ustedes tienen sus mochilas, right? Mochilas is plural, so we use sus. They have their houses. Ellos tienen sus casas. Again, houses is plural, so we use sus. They have their computers. Ellas tienen sus computadoras. Again, computadoras is plural, so we use sus. Okay? So that's it for this video clase. Go ahead and complete your activities on My Spanish Lab. And as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Adios.